You're listening to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast with your host, Leticia Ringe, and this is episode number 11. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast. This is episode number 11, and I am your host, Leticia Ringe. This podcast is designed to inspire, empower, and support you on the journey of uncovering your truth and purpose in the world. Each week, I share an inspiring conversation with an inspiring person about how they discovered purpose and the work they do in the world today. Today, I have a very exciting episode for you, as you will be hearing from one of my closest mentors, teachers, and women in my life. We will be talking about how a spiritual path can help you with life, in getting to know yourself, and of course, in finding purpose. So without further ado, I am honored to introduce today's guest as my very own mother, Mama Bear, Joanne Robinson. Joanne's fascination with spirituality and metaphysics began more than 30 years ago in a small Sydney suburb. At this time, anything spiritual or New Age, including many concepts that today fall under personal development, like the power of your thoughts, was spoken about in hushed tones. So nothing like they are today, and especially today when we are seeing such a blossoming in the appreciation for what we can't explain through traditional methods of science, but which are now being confirmed through methods like quantum physics. Despite these issues with acceptance socially 30 years ago, as all good things unfold, Joanne, my mother, simply kept following the call, her curiosity to understand how the world works, why she is here, and who she is. And this has led her to committing to a daily practice of meditation for over 30 years, which she says she considers as important as her daily shower, and to today writing a novel inspired by her fascination with spirituality and the metaphysics. In this episode, we discuss how Joanne's spiritual journey unfolded as a young mother in Sydney, Australia, 30 years ago, how things like meditation, yoga, visualizations, affirmations, and understanding how our thoughts, feelings, and the metaphysics of life can help you in overcoming difficulties throughout your life, empower you when you feel like you are a victim to your circumstances, understand more about yourself, and of course, discover purpose. We also discuss the evolution of yoga, being a mother and wanting to pass on all your amazing wisdom while also respecting your children's own path, how a spiritual practice can help you as a new mother, and how to get started on a conscious spiritual path. And lastly, which I think will be really interesting for people to hear, we also discuss what it's been like for my mother, who is someone who has almost never throughout her lifetime drank alcohol. And if you know me, you'll understand that I gave up alcohol throughout 2017 as an experiment. And since doing that, I've realized just how amazing my life can be without checking myself out of my life. And I've decided to continue without having alcohol as a part of my life. And this is a topic I'm very passionate about, as I really want to create a space for people who feel the call to reduce their drinking or to give it up completely, but who really feel the pressure socially to drink. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to get in contact, and I can put you in touch with some awesome organizations and also my own musings about alcohol. Okay, guys, let's dive into the episode. Hi, Mum. Welcome to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast.
Hi, Leticia. Thank you for having me today.
It's a pleasure. So, Mum, could you let our listeners know a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Well, my name's Joanne Robinson, and I currently live in Sydney, Australia. And I'm writing a novel about reincarnation that has a spiritual theme. And basically, I've had a lifelong interest in spirituality, metaphysics, and basically finding out how the world works.
Yes, you have. And so, when did that interest first begin?
Well, I guess when I was a child, I can remember thinking things like, why am I who I am? Why aren't I someone else? Why am I in the family that I'm in? Why aren't I part of maybe someone else's family? So I remember just having thoughts like that.
How old do you think you would have been at that time?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I think I would have been like 9, 10, and I did go to a Catholic school for much of my upbringings. So the religious element, I guess, was a part of my life. But I really just had this drive to want to know, well, who is God really, and how does God really relate to me as an individual?
That's so interesting. So then, after that, when did you start to delve into spirituality?
Well, I guess I was around 19, and it first started when I went and had a tarot reading um, at a restaurant actually near where I used to work in Parramatta at the time, and I was just amazed at how this person could tell me so much about myself, and that kind of really sparked an interest in finding out more about subjects like that. And then my mother actually, she found a couple of books. She came across a couple of books sort of more in the spiritualism realm. And so I started reading avidly, basically, any book that I could find at the time on the subject.
Wow, so this is from 19 years old.
Yes,
And
yes.
this is like, 30 something years ago. Not that I'm trying to talk about your age, but just
Sure.
to have a reference point for our listeners that, this was something that was a lot less spoken about and mainstream as it is becoming, today.
Yeah, that's right. At the time, today you can basically go online and buy a book about any topic that you would like to buy. But of course, that's pre-internet years. And at the time, there was one spiritual bookshop in Sydney called Adyar that was amazing. And they had a huge bookstore in the city with books on all kinds of metaphysical and spiritual topics. And so you had to kind of make a special trip to a bookshop like that to get any kind of book that was on a subject outside the mainstream.
Wow. Yeah. So, okay. So you started, you went to the tarot reader and then you had these books. And then were you practicing yoga or anything like that at that time? Because I know you eventually did.
Well, what happened was I started practice. I joined a spiritualist group, a spiritualist circle, as they were called, and I would go along each week. And they were basically about learning sort of a basic sort of meditation, more a guided meditation, and also to help you develop your psychic skills like clairvoyance, clairaudience. Yeah, so anyway, I did that for a few years, and then I just had this sort of calling to find out about yoga. So my mother was living in Queensland at the time, and I was living in Sydney, and she, the yoga class she was attending, the yoga teacher recommended that she read a book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. So Mum read that, and then she gave me a copy of that book for my 24th birthday, actually, and I read it and I just loved it. And so I signed up for Yogananda's Kriya Yoga lessons through Self-Realization Fellowship. And and that's been my path basically ever since then.
Yeah. So you still practice with the Self-Realization Fellowship, your like meditation and all
That's
of that.
right. Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
the autobiography of a yogi, what is that about?
Well, that's about the life of Yogananda. And Yogananda is an amazing spiritual master who was born in 1893 in India. And basically, his mission in life was to bring the teachings of Kriya Yoga to the West and also to show the similarities between original yoga and original Christianity. And he set up an organization in 1920 called Self Realization Fellowship, which still exists today. And it's there purely to disseminate the teachings of Kriya Yoga.
Okay. And so, what is Kriya Yoga? So it's a type of yoga or meditation?
It's a type of meditation. Yeah. It's yoga meditation. Yeah. And basically the whole emphasis of it is to help you have a personal experience of the divine within you. And that's what it's all about, basically.
Okay. Wow. So before you like started studying, I guess, their teachings, had you practiced meditation before?
I did, yes. I was practicing, yeah, not so much a yoga meditation, but yes, I was practicing meditation, yeah. And with yoga meditation, you get, yoga techniques of concentration that help you to really like hone your meditation skills and really focus your mind.
And at that time, you mentioned that before you had read a couple of books before you got the autobiography of a yogi. Were any of those like really memorable still to this day?
Yes, they were. One of the most memorable books that I read at the time was Shakti Gawain's Creative Visualization. And I read that prior to reading the autobiography of a yogi. And that was really the first book that I ever read about the power of your thoughts and the power of your mind and how we can really have so much more control over our lives and our destiny than we're aware of. So that really was just a mind-blowing book at the time.
So it's judging by the name, is it all about visualization?
That was a component of it.
Yeah.
I guess it's been a little while since I've kind of looked at it, but it was
Yeah.
all about the power of our thoughts and the power of visualization, the power of writing down your goals.
Mm.
Um, because prior to that, and I think a lot of people in my generation, you just kind of drifted along with the tide in life, not really realizing and not knowing that we have personal power that we can tap into.
Yeah, well, I think that's something that, people today still struggle with, that word drifting, not feeling like you're in the driver's seat of your life. And that's a term I like to use. You feel like you're in the passenger seat and life is just passing you by and you can't control anything. You're kind of a victim of your own circumstances. And
Exactly.
and I guess that feeling that your thoughts as well are all of your own and that you're responsible for them. So if that's the way you're thinking, then that's what you are. And not knowing that you can actually change your thoughts and be more intentional about how you're thinking.
Yeah, that's really true. And it's not that, you know, working with our thoughts gives us the power to control every little thing in your life. It's more that it gives you the power over how you respond to what's coming your way in life, because obviously we cannot control other people. It'd be great if we could, but rule number one of life, we can only ever change ourselves.
Mm.
Um, but if just say you are in like a really difficult situation, you can really use the power of your thoughts, the power of affirmation, the power of prayer, visualization to really get you through it. It's just invaluable. I could not imagine living life without that kind of basis in my life. I think it would just be a million times more difficult because life is challenging. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's something that meditation helps you with as well, being able to build that awareness of your thoughts and how you're going to respond in situations.
Exactly, that's right. And meditation also gives you sort of a sense of well-being, and it just helps you have a more sort of peaceful state, more of a calmness. I'm not saying that it means that nothing ever bothers you and, every day of your life. It's not, but it just somehow it helps take the edge off. I don't know, it takes the edge off life sometimes, and it just really helps in so many ways that I think we just don't really understand because it's not exactly measurable. You can't say, okay, I've meditated for X number of minutes and now, this is what I'm getting from it. It's all very subtle and kind of mysterious, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, and even I think everyone's experience of meditation is different and unique, and even your own experience every time you sit down or however you like to meditate, it's a different experience.
That's right. That's true. Yeah. And it's kind of just a very personal thing as well. So yeah, it is. It's unique to every individual person.
Yeah. So, did you have over the course of the years of you meditating, because that's something that you still do to this day, religiously, basically, not that it's
Yeah.
religious.
No.
uh, do you, so has the way that you meditate also changed over the years?
I guess it's just maybe we all evolve over the years and we grow. And I guess you just have a deeper understanding of, what you're doing and the techniques that you're using. Yeah. To me, it's just kind of something that I do for my whole life kind of thing.
Mm.
To me, I would never miss meditation. It's like, would be like missing a shower or something, it's kind of like my spiritual cleansing for the day.
I like that, spiritual cleansing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Like meditation is so mysterious. You almost want to. I wish I would could see what is happening for other people while they're
Yes.
experiencing that. I remember when
Yeah.
you were trying to teach me how to meditate, like years
Yeah.
ago, and
Yeah.
I just couldn't get it. I just, no matter how much I tried, I couldn't. Because I guess I thought at that time, which I know you kept telling me it wasn't the point, but I thought that the point was to have no thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
yeah, no, it's not.
yeah.
And it was only once I actually used this app called Headspace, and it was just this. He mentioned like so many different techniques, but it was this one technique that just finally resonated for me, and that was every time your thought sort of passed by, you would just note it, and you'd say noting. And someone pointed out to me because I was a lawyer, that of course I would like the one that says like noted, which is something we use often in our lawyer vocabulary. But I really loved that because it then made me become aware of my thoughts, which was more of the point. And then I was able to build that separation between my consciousness, I guess, and my thoughts
Yeah.
as they came through, and not be controlling them, but accepting them as they were, but not attaching onto them, I guess, and then responding with emotion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. So sorry, I got a little sidetracked there.
No.
um, and when could we just go back to the yoga then? What was it
Sure.
like back then? Was yoga popular or?
Not really. I mean, no. Yeah, the first yoga class I attended, gosh, I guess there were maybe 15 people there. No, it was not like today where basically I think just about any suburb you live in will have a yoga studio, and depending where you live, there can be multiple yoga studios. And it was certainly not something that you would really discuss with people, and even you wouldn't really tell people, hey, I meditate or what have you, because it was just looked upon as something really odd and weird. Whereas today, I think it's much more part of the mainstream culture. People understand that meditation, also helps them just with health and all kinds of areas of their lives. But back then, no, sort of a fringe thing to do, very much so.
That's so interesting. Like you couldn't talk about going to yoga. That just seems so ridiculous.
I know. It seems bizarre now, but I remember even, when I'd had a tarot reading, sort of whispering about it with another girl in the office who, had had a tarot reading, but it was not something that you would want people to overhear you talking about because it was just so out there and so outside the mainstream.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And so, and what was it that like called you to, what did you understand yoga to be at that time?
Well, I did ask the yoga teacher, I said, what does yoga do for you spiritually? And she said it unites your soul with God.
Mm.
And that's actually the ultimate goal of yoga. And I mean, as you know, there's, a bazillion different yoga paths and what have you to choose from. And yeah, before Yogananda came into my life, I had the desire, though, that I really would like to have a spiritual master, a guru. And also, when I say spiritual master, the masters are called masters because they're masters of themselves, not because they have mastery over you, because they are kind of the example that we want to follow. And all of us eventually, would like to have total control over ourselves and our lives and, our actions, etc. Anyway, so I had heard of this concept of, everyone has a spiritual master destined for them. And even though I didn't really understand what it was at the time, I did have a desire to find my guru, my master. So when I read the AY, I just recognized that that was the path for me.
Okay, autobiography of a yogi. For anyone wondering what the AY is, this is some
Yeah, yeah,
terminology.
yeah.
I was just thinking as you were just speaking about um, the my experience or what I observed with yoga when I first started. It was
Mm,
through a gym, and
yeah,
that was very much about the movement. Move as much as possible. Sweat and do lots of action. And then
yeah,
since it was actually just before I moved to London, I found a yoga center, and I only went there because they had some deal on Groupon. And my
yeah,
experience, my experience there was so different because it was so much more about actually really connecting to your body and going at your own pace and doing
yeah,
what was right for you. And I loved our teacher. We used to feel like on a Saturday when we'd leave the class that we were just in pure bliss. It was so
yeah,
beautiful. And then
yeah.
since moving to London, yoga's huge over here in London, and it's been well established for many years from what I understand. And so there's many yoga centers and it's very mainstream, and they have so many different styles of yoga, and a big one that's popular at the moment is yin yoga, which is all
Oh,
about the feminine energy. So it's a lot slower, and
mm,
it's just so interesting to see. Oh, it's great to see that the focus in these places is about your actual connection between mind and body. and
yeah.
and actually one of someone I know who's a yoga teacher was talking about how what happens on the mat is such a reflection of your life,
Right,
because like
right.
all the things
Wow.
that you're thinking as you're going through yoga and the challenges, and it's just it's really I just love yoga. So yeah, I would recommend it to anyone listening who feels like they might want to, they might feel the call to try it. I definitely
Yeah,
recommend it.
yeah, for sure.
So, and something else that you mentioned was about with the masters, how they're masters of themselves. And I thought
Yeah,
that was so interesting because when we talk about control, it's actually not controlling everything in our world, but
uh,
also about surrender. Was intuition something that was spoken about, throughout your spiritual journey in the early days?
yes, it was intuition and awareness and consciousness. And even though I really didn't, totally understand what that meant at the time, Yeah, just sort of being aware of those inner promptings that we all have, from our, sometimes I think there wouldn't be a person alive who hasn't had an experience of intuition, just having a hunch about something that's going to happen, or, many people, I think they have the experience with knowing someone's going to call them or contact them, or you think of a person you haven't seen in a long time and then you bump into them on the street, that kind of thing. I think it just adds a very kind of mystical element to life because it's a natural part of life. I think too, some people, sometimes it's looked at as though, well, some people are intuitive and other people aren't. But I think it's just an innate part of us. It's an innate part of our soul, and it's something we all have, and that we, to one degree or another.
Yeah, I agree totally. And also, actually, even on, the Myers-Briggs personality test, that is
Yeah,
a spectrum. It's not, you're
yeah,
just one or the other. It's like
yeah,
introversion and extroversion. It is a spectrum, which is so
yeah,
interesting. And like, because actually,
yeah.
I'm an ENFP, but I am like 45% introverted and 55% extroverted. So you see,
Yeah.
like, you think you're one or the other, but you're not. You're on a scale.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's really interesting about intuition.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So
No.
after you started in with the self-realization fellowship, were there any other like defining teachers that you came across that first come to mind?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I read widely and I have for decades. People like, let's say, Louise Hay. I just love her work. She has been a real beautiful influence in my life as well. I learned a lot from her as well about, affirmations, the power of thought, the power of positivity. So she's been very influential in my life. Marianne Williamson, I love a lot of her books as well. I've gotten a lot from reading her work as well over the years. Another person I just adore is Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and she has a beautiful book called Women Who Run with the Wolves. And it's just like someone is speaking straight to your soul, particularly for women. I mean, she's just got such an amazing understanding of many of the different experiences women go through in life, and often silently, that aren't discussed. Yeah, it's a really beautiful book. Interestingly, that book was recommended to me probably 20 odd years ago, and at the time it just never really got into it. And then probably 5 years ago, a friend of mine again mentioned it to me, or two different people, and I bought a copy and I just couldn't put it down. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, and you bought me a copy of that, and I still haven't read it, but I'm reading it as soon as I come back to Australia to visit because I now think it's the right time, and it's been like recommended by so many people to me recently.
Yeah.
And yeah, most recently my dear friend Ange, and I know that I have to read it. There's been too many signs now, but when I tried to read it maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't. I felt like I wasn't old enough to understand it, and I guess
Yeah.
I hadn't really
Yeah.
started any of my own journey on the sort of personal development, and it was only, I think, in the last like 7 months that I have really even felt like I was on a spiritual journey, and things have just
Right.
taken off so quickly ever like since then. But yeah, so they're great authors that you've recommended there, and I love that they're all women as well. That's interesting.
Sure. No, well, there's certainly some some male authors too that I've really loved over the years as well, like Wayne Dyer.
Oh, he's so
I,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, I love his work, and I got to hear him in person, actually, and Louise Hay in person.
And Louise.
Yeah, and Louise at
Oh,
a Hay House conference, probably around, it would have been maybe 10 years ago. So that was really lovely. Another person whose work I always enjoyed as well was Michael Neal. He's a life coach. And he really helped me understand more about abundance and how to bring more abundance into my life. I really enjoyed his work. Another person, Michael Rowland. I've done a number of his self-development courses, and he's a really great teacher.
And is he in one of those documentaries?
He made his own documentary,
Okay.
yes, called Being in Heaven, yes, which is basically all about the principles of the mind and personal development and, positive thinking, etc. Yeah, it's a really good documentary.
Yeah, I think I remember watching it and I thought it was really great. And then the other documentary, of course, that you used to recommend is What the Bleep.
That's right. What the Bleep, I remember when that came out, it was just like, I remember I was just blown away because it was so unique. I mean, today, of course, again, a lot of these ideas are much more out in the mainstream. But when What the Bleep came out, there really was nothing like it at the time. And then, of course, also we had The Secret, and now there's probably all sorts of other documentaries around that I have never heard of that are, all about the power of the mind. And
Yeah.
there's a lovely documentary too about the life of Yogananda called Awake. That's really interesting too, if anyone's interested in checking that out too.
Yeah, that is a great movie. And what
Mm.
about manifesting? When did you start hearing about that? If you can remember, I don't know how
Yeah.
far
Well,
back you have to go.
sure. Well, that's probably with Shakti Gawain.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wondered if
It,
that was what it was really
yeah,
about.
it would have been. But it's, again, as I said, it's like, as the years pass and you grow and evolve, you understand things more and more, because sometimes you might hear about a concept but you don't really completely understand what they're talking about.
Yeah,
um,
totally.
yeah,
That's so true. Even I remember when The Secret, when you I don't know, were either reading it or watching it and recommended it to me, or one of my friends did. I can't remember who
yeah.
it was. I just blame mum for any recommendation because I feel like it was probably you. But yeah, it was so learning about manifestation then through The Secret. I mean, I just loved learning about it, and then also doing Gay and Katie Hendricks' Attracting Genuine Love course,
Yes,
and
yes,
of course meeting Lou not long after doing that. And I still
yeah,
remember like the day that I came back home and I just met Lou that weekend, and you knew that you asked me if I'd met someone. And it all happened so quickly. But yeah, I remember, so I was using manifestation then, but then, I wasn't, I mean, you're always manifesting, of course, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't consciously I was consciously manifesting at that time because I wanted to find a partner.
yeah,
And then I met Lou, and he ticked like all of the boxes that I wanted. And but most importantly, I had also looked at what I was offering to the relationship as well, so I felt like I got my equal. But
yeah,
the other thing was that then I wasn't so interested, and it hasn't been until like last year or no, 2016, when I started hearing Jess Lively talking about manifestation, that I then started looking into it all again. And so now I've done so many different courses and things, and
yeah,
every time it's just sinking in a deeper and different way. So yeah, I totally
yeah.
resonate with what you say there.
Yeah, yeah. And, there's a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I just think that's so true because, we can have read a particular book and then we might go, years later and look at it again, and we might get something completely different out of it because we have changed, our consciousness has changed, our understanding has changed. And yeah, that's why too I say, when we are awakening spiritually, we can't sort of shove our beliefs onto other people, or, what we're doing onto other people, because people grow and evolve at their own rate, and
Mm.
they have to kind of be ready for that, in their own time.
Yeah, I mean, what is it like for you as a mother with, adult children who has all this wisdom and just want to pass it on to, of
Yeah.
course, because it's changed your life so much. Like, how did you deal with that?
Well, yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like I feel like, wow, I'm sitting on this treasure chest of amazing information. And, it just teaches you that you have to, your children are their own people, they're not just mini versions of you or whatever, that, each child has their own unique soul path and their own life journey and that they need to follow. So, I think as a mother, you just learn maybe when to say a little something here and there, but you kind of just, bless your children with your love and hope that, their lives will be really great and that, that they will come upon their own path in their own time. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think it would be nice for you to also share as a young mother
Yeah.
having a meditation practice or some sort of spiritual practice. Like, how does that help? With the all the obvious sort of struggles or
Yeah.
tension you
Yeah.
must have as a new mother.
Yeah. I think, uh, I guess, how could I put it? I guess it just gives you sort of a greater sense of well-being, and it just helps you through all the ups and downs of life somehow. Yeah, it just helps you, and naturally when you're a young mother, you may not have much time to even devote to your practice, Now that obviously I'm here, just me and my husband and our cat, I have a lot more time to devote to things like that. But as a young mother, I guess, yeah, you just do what you can, but it's still really good to know all those concepts and to learn them and to be, absorbing that. And then and your kids kind of absorb things too by osmosis as well. So even if it's not something they may use consciously in their life, it's still sort of there in the ether in the environment. So I think
Yeah,
it's helpful.
of course. And also your subconscious is, downloading all of this stuff at such a
Yeah.
young age. So
Yes.
you
Yes.
can't help but
Yeah.
pick it up. And one thing I thought it'd be great for you to also mention is just with the self realization fellowship. I remember you saying that one of the reasons you also applied for the teachings there was because at that time it was one of the few available that was so accessible, like financially.
That's right. Exactly, that's true. Yeah, that was one of the things that really impressed me because a lot of the other spiritual or metaphysical courses at the time that I had looked into were just like exorbitantly expensive, completely out of the realm of sort of a sort of a normal family's wage restrictions kind of thing. So anyway, I was really impressed when I wrote off to inquire about the lessons, and they were really affordable. And yeah, so I thought, wow, that was just another kind of thing in their favor. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And so, are there any other like key sort of teachings or anything that you want to share?
I guess I would just, want to say to people that every person is valuable, every person matters, um, and that, I wish I'd known when I was younger that kind of whatever would come my way in life, I'd be able to get through it. And even when you sort of are walking through your own personal hell and going through very difficult times in life, you will come out the other side and you'll be okay and you'll probably be a lot stronger for it.
That's beautiful advice. Thank you. And Mum, what do you think that a spiritual path can offer someone who might be trying to discover what their purpose is?
Okay. Well, what I think is that it helps them. I think it helps them in being able to reflect more upon their lives.
And understand who they are?
That's right. It helps them to understand who they are as a person. It helps them to understand the world better. I think also, crucially, it helps us to understand other people better as well. It helps us to have more compassion for and kindness for ourselves and for other people because you just never know what someone's going through or dealing with. So I think it also maybe helps us have more patience with other people, especially really difficult or toxic people that may come into your life. I think it just helps as well to give a greater understanding of other people. Not that I'm saying that, you should put up with being abused or, letting people kind of try to ruin your life or something, but I'm just saying it just helps you to understand life better.
Yeah, and its challenges, I guess.
Exactly. That's the thing, because I know when I was first sort of into spirituality, I used to think that a spiritual life eventually meant a life of no problems and sort of just endless, peaceful times and, swing in the hammock, out in the garden or something. But I've realized, no, it's not. It's like you're at the coal face, and stuff happens, things come into your life that you may not have chosen, but they come to strengthen us. I know Yogananda says a wrestler always fights with a stronger wrestler to gain strength and power, and that's what happens with us in life. Things come our way, and they are designed to help us bring out our innate strength and power that we all have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And and so, Mum, is there any advice that you would give to your younger self, knowing what you know
Just
today?
let's see. I would just again tell her, you really matter just as much as anybody else. You have a right to express yourself just as much as anybody else has. And just keep on, because, even if you do go through some darkness, the light is always there and things will always get better.
That's beautiful. And one thing that I also really, really wanted to talk about on here, which I think is so cool, is that you have not been someone who's drank alcohol for most of your adult life.
That's true. That's true. Yes, because I know with yoga teachings, they suggest you don't use, drugs and alcohol because it will interfere with your meditation practice. And also because I was a young mum too, and I had little kids and, and I just guess I didn't really like to be drinking around you guys. But, so when I was like in my early 40s, I occasionally would have some wine here and there at one point, but then I stopped. That was just a short period, if I was in a social setting. And I thought, no, I just have to be me, even though I'm swimming against the tide. And, and in our culture, as you know, alcohol is just such a socially acceptable part of life, and you're considered kind of freakish if you don't drink. But still, I thought, no, I just have to honor myself and be who I am. So what I found is that you almost get more, I don't know, respect in the world if you say, I can't drink because I'm like a recovering alcoholic or something, rather than saying, I just choose not to drink. People find that very confronting for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely. They they think, yeah, that's something, that's actually the problem, that you don't drink. That's really strange. It's so weird. But I think that's such a testament to you, like going for all of those years without being tempted for any, substantial length of time with drinking alcohol, and like following what you obviously knew deep within you wasn't something that was right for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's wonderful. And actually, I think that's also with all of this spiritual stuff, and because you're becoming so much more aware of your thoughts, you also become really aware of your body and how things are reacting, how what you're consuming, both energetically but also through food and drink, affects your body. And so I just think that's a really nice for people to hear, because now, binge drinking and drinking is still a huge part of, a lot of our different cultures. But I think that is starting to change. And so I really hope that if anyone's listening to this, you gave up alcohol in 2017, and before I did that, I had a very normal relationship with alcohol for a millennial, which was, I overdrank on weekends and holidays, and it was just the most liberating thing ever to finally just say, you know what, I don't care if I'm going to be socially outcast, which by the way I wasn't, and I don't care if it's going to seem weird, but I'm just gonna give it up and try it. And then discovering after a year of doing that as, almost an experiment, it's something that I want to continue because I feel so much better when I'm not drinking, and I don't like having something that checks me out of my reality. And also, I think that alcohol is a really big problem in our society, and I don't want my children growing up in a world where they will feel like they will be outcasts for drinking something that is designed to check us out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, life is challenging. And so I'm sure, a lot of people are drinking to help them cope with life. And it would be just wonderful to see more people be able to just drop the alcohol and find other ways of, dealing with life. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly, and also, alcohol doesn't provide a solution to the problem, and that's my big thing. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I just thought
Yes.
I would mention that. So okay, well, Mum, is there any other advice you might give to someone who is, struggling to figure out what the meaning of their life is or what their purpose might be?
I just think if people take time to introspect and contemplate and maybe, explore, different spiritual options and try to find, a good spiritual path that suits them and that calls to them, and maybe, yeah, just read a lot of different books, find a mentor if you can. That's always really great if you're able to find one. Yeah.
Great. And Mum, is there anything that you are particularly fascinated by or loving at the moment?
Lots of things actually. I have lots of lots of interests. One thing I've been getting really interested in lately is Mary Magdalene, and I've been reading a little more about her because she's such a mysterious figure in the Bible. And despite all the attempts to just paint her as being this horrible, fallen woman, she was actually, it turns out, one of Christ's most advanced disciples, and she actually had some followers of her own. So, anyway, that's been a really fascinating topic that I'm looking into at the moment. I'm also, sorry, go
Rob
ahead.
Bell, Rob Bell?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah,
actually talks about that in his book, What is the Bible? About how significant Mary's role was, and
yes,
if you properly interpret the Bible against all of the different contexts that it captures, and also like women, they had the responsibility of all the finances back whenever whatever story he was talking about was, set, which I thought was really
yeah,
interesting. And he was saying, the women had, a fundamental position. They weren't completely, like a lot of different religions have made, women not have a equal role to the
that's
men.
right.
So I thought,
Yes.
yeah, that's so interesting. I'd be really interested to learn more about Mary Magdalene as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I'm also interested in ufology and exopolitics and the ramifications for our planet of contact with beings and people from other planets. I find that a really fascinating subject that's been kind of, I guess, in the consciousness since probably the 40s when the Roswell incident happened. I'm also interested in history, Aboriginality, many things, animals, nature. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been so nice to speak to you, and I think that there's so many, beautiful examples here of how a spiritual path might help someone, deal with the challenges of life and also get to know themselves better and therefore also their purpose, which is what
Yeah.
I love to explore.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So there it is, my friends. I hope you enjoyed that beautiful conversation with my mother, Joanne Robinson. I absolutely agree that a spiritual path And meditation, yoga, visualization, understanding that you do have power over how you respond to your thoughts and feelings is essential and a beautiful way to uncover your truth and purpose. The Create a Life That Is Beautiful philosophy over here is that by following what we love, enjoy, and are inspired by, that is how we discover and show up for our purpose. So when we when we stop looking outside ourselves for the answers and instead take the journey within, that is how we uncover purpose and meaning in our life. You can find the show notes for this episode over at www.leticiaringe.com/Joanne Robinson. And if you are someone who is feeling that call to understand more about why you are here, what I believe is the call for purpose, this is the call to turn inwards. And meditation allows us to be able to tune into our intuition, to tune out all the noise around us, and to actually think clearly about what lights us up, about what we love, enjoy, and are inspired by. And then we follow those feelings. And this, my friends, is what leads us to purpose. And that is what we are all about over here at Create a Life That Is Beautiful. If you are interested about exploring those curiosities or that call a little further with someone who can facilitate the space for you to, 1, discover, and then 2, show up for your purpose, please check out my one-to-one coaching offerings, and I would love to hear from you. Now, what's next for me? As I record this, I'm currently staying in Sydney, Australia, my hometown. And this weekend, I am celebrating for the first time my engagement to my beautiful partner, Llewellyn. And next week, I will be watching my beautiful sister get married. I also invite you all to sign up for my weekly newsletter if you haven't already. Every week I share some further inspiration, tools and resources, including the podcast, to help you on the journey of discovering and showing up for your purpose and creating a life you love, enjoy, and are inspired by. You can subscribe over at www.leticiaringe.com, and for daily inspiration, connect with me on Instagram at Create a Life That Is Beautiful. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you could please, if this episode or the podcast so far has provided you with any value, make sure you leave a review on iTunes, share it with anyone you think might resonate, and get in touch to let me know what you love. Okay, have a wonderful week, my friends, and see you next week for another episode to help you unlock your truth and purpose.